2023年7月21日11时，费城华人在美东中国城报道，在亿万富翁开发商突然宣布拟在费城中心城建造一座篮球馆1年后，包括宗教神职人员、中国城社区人员和多个华裔及其他族裔组织在内的社区要求市议员Mark Squilla履行他的承诺，停止篮球馆的建设。1年前，他曾承诺只有在社区支持的情况下才会进行场馆建设。他对这个不受欢迎的项目拥有否决权。许多组织和调查显示，中国城居民、企业主和游客的反对声压倒性的高涨。社区成员敦促 Squilla 市议员信守诺言，停止该项目，强调其对中国城未来的潜在负面影响，并将其与其他社区过去发生的流离失所事件进行比较。在现场，中国城居民也是亚裔联合会联合创始人 Debbie 为与亚裔联合会公民项目主管陈薇接受了本媒体的采访。他们表示，费城市政府最近关于篮球馆项目的声明是在费城问询报披露开发商资助该项目后发布的。这个声明的时机是有问题的，太巧合了。而且之前曾为该76人篮球馆项目工作过的经济顾问的参与，引发了社区居民对该调查声明中立性的担忧。市政府曾声称研究将独立进行，但现在似乎是由开发商支付费用。这表示中国城社区需要继续团结一起，并与其他诸多反对篮球馆建设的社区联合对抗该项目的必要性。
That shows that you do respect us and you do want to hear our voice. So thank you, Councilman. Okay, none that goes to left. So. They want to build it here. We don't want it. Who has the ultimate say of what goes there, and or are they allowed? Like, is it the government? How do they protect us? And if so, where do we go for our community voice to be heard and for them to say this plan is a dead deal?
Can you ask this question in Chinese?
Cantonese?
廣東話都可以。
我嘅問題係問。Actually, my Chinese is not
Okay,
great.
sorry, 确实。
大家好，我叫 Debbie， 我是这个社区的一位成员，我在这里住了1辈子了。首先，我想感谢这位议员，他有留下来，不像刚才那些走掉的人，所以对于我们，他给予了非常多的尊重，表示了他对于我们这个社区的尊重。感谢你有留下来。然后我想问的问题就是，如果他们要建在这里，我们不同意，那最终的决策权在谁手中？谁有权利说允许他们建还是不建？是政府吗？谁可以给予我们保障？
Thank you, Debbie, and thank you for that question. As you heard earlier, there will have to be some type of legislation introduced in order for the proposal to move forward. So that legislation would have to be introduced by me. So I would have to introduce that legislation. So the only way I made a commitment that we would share that legislation with the community ahead of time, get feedback, and only if supported by the community would it be able to move forward.
谢谢 Debbie。
Translation first.
The question was, where do I stand right now?
那刚才最后一个问题就是对于这件事情我有什么样的看法？那首先回答你刚才所有的问题，感谢 Debbie， 也感谢你问这些问题。那关于这个项目呢，必须要有一个政策被公布之后才能进行下去，而这个政策呢，会由我来公布。所以我刚才已经承诺过大家，如果有任何的政策提案的话，我们都会和社区分享，得到社区的反馈，然后如果社区同意的话，我们才会继续进行下去。
My position, and I told this when I met with the 76ers development group, that their goal and what they need to do in order to get legislation for this was to meet with the community, get outreach to the community, find out what their concerns were, see if those concerns can be mediated, and if they can, then a process will be in place to move forward. If they can't, then the process would not move forward.
那对于这件事情，我也持有怀疑的态度，因为当时我跟他们碰面的时候，我就跟他们说过，对于他们想做的这件事情，他们需要做的就是他们需要和社会成员碰个面，然后进行外展活动。 找出他们的顾虑是什么，然后对于这些顾虑是否可以缓解，如果可以缓解的话，这个政策才会继续下去；如果不可以缓解的话，将不会被继续下去。
All right, go ahead. Next question, right? What kind of comment?
Well, I mean, I think the timing of that statement is interesting because it came out right as they knew that the Inquirer had uncovered that the developers were paying for it. We were kind of surprised that they were coming out with that. I know that our planning committee has been meeting with them to go over applications, but I don't believe they've seen all the applications yet. We're also surprised that, in particular, the economic consultant hired is someone who has worked for arenas in the past to kind of justify the economics of arenas. It doesn't feel very neutral to us.
Debbie 刚才所说的就是对于现在费城市政府发出来的这个消息，关于环境影响调查，我们感到很惊讶，因为我们之前也花了很多时间把这些专业的人士，特别学这方面、城市规划这方面的专业人士召集在一起，给费城市政府很多建议，关于怎么样做一个好的影响调查，针对说我们社区怎么做一个好的一个影响调查。可是现在目前为止，我们看到的是，我们没有感觉费城市政府在接受我们的建议，说对此我们感到比较失望。
What came out in the English newspapers is that the developers are the ones that are paying for these studies, even though the city said these were going to be independent studies. It makes the whole process questionable. Obviously, if someone is paying for something, it will benefit them more. And we've already seen, our planning committee has already seen the RFPs that are being responded to, and they don't address the concerns that we have in Chinatown.
所以说，对于这个影响调查呢，我们知道，虽然说费城市政府说他们有付一些钱在这上面，但是在英文媒体上面，感觉更多的是这个76人队在付这个影响调查。通常来说，这种环境影响调查，如果谁出的钱谁出的钱，一般来说会比较偏向他们，所以对于这方面来说，我们也是在争取我们要争取的方面。
I think it's really important for members of the Chinese community to understand that this is not a done deal, that we will continue to fight this, and that we have to stay united in order to fight this. We've been spending a lot of time building support across the city from communities outside of Chinatown, all over the city, and we feel that the vast majority of the people of this city now support Chinatown. So we just have to continue to use that support to pressure politicians to do the right thing.
所以说，对于这方面的话，就是我们想说的是，我们现在的社区应该团结在一起。然后呢，这个项目虽然说现在的决定，现在的这个地方呢，还不是完全的一个最终的一个计划，我们还是有机会去改变现在的现状。然后我们社区要团结在一起，不仅社区要团结在一起，我们也看到了其他社区，其他种族的社区也在团结在一起。这也显示出，不单单只是唐人街不想要这个篮球场，整个费城的社区都支持唐人街反对这个篮球场。我们应该运用我们现在现有的这些支持和团结起来的力量，给这些政治人物施加压力。
Good morning, everyone. My name is Pastor Wayne Lee. I am the English pastor at Chinese Christian Church and Center. And as you just heard Councilman Squilla say, he is the sole decision maker when it comes to the arena. He has to be the one to introduce legislation in order for the arena to move forward. And he also made a clear commitment when he said, quote, "Only if the legislation is supported by the community would the process move forward." And I just want to say that we appreciate Councilman Squilla's commitment to the community. And I truly believe that Councilman Squilla cares for the Chinatown community. And we are simply asking him today to stand by his word. Because as we've seen in the past year, it is very clear that the community does not want it. More than 40 Chinatown organizations formed the Chinatown Coalition to oppose the arena. More than 30 organizations joined the Save Chinatown Coalition, also to oppose the arena. The Philadelphia Chinatown Development Corporation, also known as PCDC or local RCO, has also come out to oppose the project, saying that the arena deeply imperils the future of Chinatown and cites the abundant research which shows that stadiums are distinct forces of gentrification and displacement. PCDC also surveyed Chinatown community members and found overwhelming opposition to the arena. 93% of business owners, 94% of residents, 95% of visitors oppose the arena. More than 17,000 people have signed the petition saying that they don't want an arena in the heart of Philadelphia. More than 4,500 people have sent handwritten postcards to City Council, including thousands to Councilman Squilla, directly urging him to stop this project. And lastly, in June, more than 3,000 people joined the No Arena in the Heart of Our City march and rally. And I think if you were at the rally, you would have seen that it's not just Asians or those of Chinese descent that are against the arena, but the rally showed the widespread and strong opposition to this project. And so it's clear that this project does not have the community's support. Councilman Squilla, this project does not have the support of your constituents. And we believe that there's no way to mitigate the impacts of this arena because it is an existential threat to our community. And so, Councilman Squilla, we're simply asking you this. Hold true to your word. Amen. You said if the community doesn't want it, then the arena won't happen. And I believe that the community has made itself known and clear. The community does not want it. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Robin Heinecke, and I'm the pastor of the Arch Street United Methodist Church, which is located on the southeast corner of Broad and Arch Street. We are truly in the Chinatown neighborhood and certainly consider ourselves a neighbor and a benefactor of Chinatown's grace, its long-standing commitment to community building, and the beauty that it brings to our center city, our city, and even our region. We all know that Chinatown is a treasure. And the arena would destroy this 150-year-old community. Not only that, but this arena and its footprint would wreak havoc in all of Center City. Chinatown has been a wonderful neighbor to my church. And an arena would bring toxic demolition and construction, interrupting the daily flow of life, not only in Chinatown, but in all of Center City and beyond. Just look at what's happened with the Greyhound bus station being moved from where it was to where it is now, and the inconvenience, and actually the hardship that that brings for people. We know that arenas are not good for cities. They don't fulfill promises of jobs or economic activity. Philadelphia is united. Philadelphia and beyond is united against this stadium. We know that it's not just because of what people say, but because of what people do. 15,000 people signed petitions saying no arena. More than 3,000 people have written postcards to our elected officials saying no arena. I want to address something that's of deep concern to me personally and to my community that I serve. And that's the bad faith of the arena developers. Someone seeking to build in the heart of our city must be highly trustworthy, but these developers have proven they cannot be trusted. 76 DevCorp, according to information obtained through the Right to Know Act, has been meeting with elected and other city officials on a regular basis since the beginning and even before they announced the stadium. We've heard that attorneys from the city in collaboration with 76 DevCorp are already drafting legislation needed to pave the way for the development. It simply said Chinatown and Center City and even beyond, the people who matter, the people who live and work here, don't want the stadium. They demanded a thorough impact study and even made professionally vetted suggestions to improve the scope of work in the process, because conducting a detailed, comprehensive study is the right thing to do. But Chinatown had to fight every inch of the way to be heard. and included, while 76 DevCorp is welcomed at all of the tables as honored guests. Common sense knows that now that DevCorp is paying for the study, their influence is greater than if they weren't. Lastly, I want to remind Councilman Squilla and City Council and all of you gathered here today and those who might see this press conference that the very same money that was behind the closing of Hahnemann Hospital is behind this project. Wow. Remember that the private equity firm that loaned money for the takeover of the hospital recovered all of its investment while thousands of poor residents of this city were left without access to health care. Remember the negotiations with Hahnemann to open the doors to provide emergency care in the midst of the COVID-19 pandemic went nowhere. When we needed them most, the very ones who want to put a stadium in the center of our city and region were absent during our hour of greatest need. At this point, the impact study, a community benefits agreement, the promise of jobs, and anything else proffered is an empty promise at best, and is a hostile takeover of Chinatown and all of Center City at its worst. Why would any neighborhood want 76 DevCorp as a neighbor when they have already proven they don't care about Philadelphians and the region it serves? This is an intrusive development, not inclusive community neighborhood development. It's predatory, not participatory. It will last only for a day and will bring no essential value, long-term value. Councilman Squilla, members of City Council, you are elected to represent us, the people, not buildings, not corporations, not profits. We are calling on you today to listen to the voices of the people who say no arena in Chinatown. This is a moral issue, and we ask you to do the right thing. Say no to the arena.
Amen.
Councilmember Squilla, we've had our share of disagreements, but today we can agree that keeping your word is the right thing to do. We know that you have seen the richness and vibrancy of Chinatown's community. You traveled with us to DC Chinatown and saw how a once thriving community was hollowed out by an arena. What you might have missed was what was said to me as we boarded the van to drive back to Philly. Penny, one of the former DC Chinatown residents who lost her home after the arena was built, stopped me and said, I want to give you one piece of advice. Take lots of pictures now, because if the arena gets built, that's all that you will have left. You may not have heard her words, but you saw the pain in the former residents who took us on that tour. Councilmember Squilla, you attended the first public meeting on the arena proposal in December and heard how much people value and rely on this neighborhood. You also heard the frustration and anger of the Chinatown community at the disrespect and lack of transparency throughout this process. Unlike the developers' representatives, you stayed throughout that meeting, and we saw that. We appreciated that. We felt you were listening. You've said several times that only if Chinatown would support it would you put forth any legislation to allow it to happen. Opposition has been overwhelming. We've been patient. We've trusted you and the promises you made to your constituents, to the people you were elected to represent. The billionaire developers don't have the interests of our city in mind. If they did, they wouldn't have pushed to close down Greyhound 2 years before their lease ended, with no plan in sight for its riders, creating a national disgrace and a humanitarian crisis on Market Street. And shame on this city for allowing that to happen. These developers have ignored our community with an arrogance that only the rich have, that money can buy anything, including political support for unpopular and irresponsible boondoggles. Councilmember Squilla, it is not too late for you to do the right thing. Fulfill the promises you made to our community. Represent the people you were elected to serve. Show everyone in Philadelphia that Philadelphia is truly a city of neighborhoods, that our city is not for sale, and that all neighborhoods, yes, even small, working class, immigrant communities of color are valued and have a voice. We stand here united to give voice on behalf of a community that has fought to survive for 150 years in spite of constant, relentless encroachment. We plead on behalf of all neighborhoods who ask to be heard in the face of processes corrupted by money and profit for the few over the needs and livelihoods of the many. For over 150 small businesses, for the 4,000 residents, and the 20,000 Asian Americans across the region who look to Chinatown as a cultural, spiritual, and social center, as a space to feel safe in an often hostile world. For a Philadelphia that believes in the power of its neighborhoods, in the value of our rich diversity, and in prioritizing the needs of the people who have put their roots down in our city, we plead today on behalf of our elders and our children, for all our relations. A year is more than enough time for us to have suffered with an axe hanging above our heads. Councilmember Squilla, do the right thing and end this now.
Do the right thing.
My name is Walter Palmer. I'm the founder of the Palmer Foundation circa 1955, and also a professor of American racism at the University of Pennsylvania since the 1960s. When I hear Debbie make these pleas, it's so reminiscent of what happened in my community. I grew up in a neighborhood called the Black Bottom, 33rd Street towards Closed Market to 40th Street to the west, Lancaster Avenue to the north, and University Avenue to the south. The community was built in about 1854 called Hamilton Village and eventually morphed into Greenville and then later on into the Black Bottom. University of Pennsylvania came to that area in 1873. And within 30 years, they built 30 or 40 buildings. Now this is something you must understand. It doesn't matter whether it's your community. Your community may be next. And the whole idea of this is our getting connected with one another to recognize when something bad happens to any of us, it happens to all of us. Take a look at this. University of Pennsylvania used its nonprofit status and its so-called do good in the community for all those years to be able to take advantage of our community. Drexel used theirs to go into Mantua to take over the people in Mantua. Temple University used their largesse and went into North Philadelphia, and their goal was to take over 25% of North Philadelphia. St. Joe's went into Winfield, a predominantly all-black community, and removed many of the people there from those large stone brick houses. University of the Sciences moved into Woodland Avenue and wiped out a black community totally along Woodland Avenue. LaSalle University did the same thing in North Philadelphia's, Germantown and LaSalle, encroaching on the east side of Oak Lane, the Oak Lanes. And then 20 years ago, I stood here with Debbie on this baseball stadium out of Chinatown. It goes on and on and on, and the reason it does because we don't stay on watch. And Debbie, I constantly think it's so wonderful. I see these young people here. It is so important for us to keep on, as you said earlier, pass the baton for that generation. So my community has already been displaced. I grew up in West Philadelphia. I loved the Black Bottom. My family, my mother, my brothers and sisters were there, and the final bricks were taken down. It was once a thriving, tight-knit community, protective, not having so many of the episodes that you hear in poor communities today. This is the future of Chinatown. If Squilla does the wrong thing, the developers behind this arena are responsible for displacing my family and my ancestors. Councilman Squilla, if you do the wrong thing, the only thing you will be remembered for is being the politician who destroyed Philadelphia's 150-year-old Chinatown. one of the few last remaining Chinatowns in the whole country. Because so many have already been destroyed all across the country by projects like this, Councilman Squilla, your legacy is on the line. And finally, if you do the right thing, we have your back and we'll champion you. Your constituents, as well as tens of thousands across this city, will remember your just stance.
Just want to emphasize, Councilman Squilla, you are the sole decider on this project.
Councilmember Squilla, you still have the chance to do the right thing, the righteous thing. Stop the arena.
Councilmember Squilla, and if you do the wrong thing, we will never forget. It will be remembered that in spite of your promises and the desires of most of this city, you destroyed Chinatown. You have the power to create your own legacy. What will it be? We're happy to take any questions.
So Wednesday afternoon, the city announced there are 3 studies that they believe, 3 RFPs to commission. What will your group's involvement be with those? Or have you been approached by the city to be involved in any of the 3 studies?
In February, as mentioned before, we had a group of professional urban planners, architects, sociologists, professors at places like Penn, who came together and volunteered and put together a request for proposals for impact studies so that the community, this community, could understand the impact of what was happening. We asked for those studies because when we asked, what do you need from us as a community to show that we don't support it? Because we will get that to you. No one answered. So we didn't know how to stop this. So we asked for those impact studies. In March, the mayor announced independent impact studies. They did not reflect the recommendations of this community. They offered us a seat at the table to pick the people who would be conducting these studies and put us in a kind of interesting position, like a damned if you do, damned if you don't, because why should we be on a selection committee for studies that don't represent what we want? But if we don't go, they would say, well, we offered them a seat at the table and they didn't take it. So we went, and we've been trying. And they keep saying, oh, we'll take it under advisement. On Monday, conveniently enough, before that was announced, a reporter from the Philadelphia Inquirer revealed that it was the developers themselves that were doing these studies. And not only that there's no parking and traffic study because they are using the developer's parking and traffic study as the base template. That they are using a pro-arena consultant for their economic analysis. We don't have faith in this process anymore. We've seen too much. We've seen these developers try to sneak legislation through a bill that Mayor Kenney and Councilmember Squilla both denied actually ever seeing. Though the bill was introduced, we caught it. We found out later that it was the attorney for the developers that wrote that clause, so they have the power to write legislation. We saw how ethics board violations have been leveled against these developers for a number of things. Allegedly, for trying to buy the mayor's race, and definitely for trying to hide their lobbying money. We know that they've spent more than $2 million on lobbying. And now we find out that the developers are totally behind this impact study. Trust has been broken. It was up to the developers to win this community's trust. It was up to the city to represent us, to represent its people. And now that trust is broken as well.
Do you guys have another move? Is there anything else that you can do other than wait on Squilla to make a move or decision?
As Walt mentioned, our community has fought for 150 years to survive, and we have a tradition that we pass on to our young people. You can see them right here now because we do this consciously. We are passing on a tradition of resistance. We are passing on the responsibility to fight for this community. We will continue to fight for this community. We fought for this community for 150 years. We will fight for 150 years more.
Excuse me for a minute. I'm going to add something to that. In addition to what this incredible community of Chinatown has been doing in organizing and putting forth their voice, there are others coming alongside in terms of solidarity, taking their lead, listening to their voice, and continuing to move out even beyond Center City to engage communities of faith and conscience, not only in the city but beyond the city, to be involved in saying to these developers and to this project that it is not appropriate, it is a land grab, it will destroy a community that is already thriving. And so we are continuing to talk and engage beyond this immediate community, those who care about community economic development, that listens to the people.
When this first began, Council Member Squilla, we felt was listening to us, was extremely supportive. We still have hope that he is hearing us and that he'll do the right thing. It isn't necessarily Council Member Squilla that we've lost faith with. It is the processes of this city government. We are being told that this is just how it's always done, that developers just get to write their own impact studies. We're trying to understand if this is actually how it's done, because if it's done, it explains a lot about why things could happen to the Black Bottom and other communities throughout the city. We're asking that this change and that the people of this city have not only equal but more say than developers who don't live here and who don't care about the city.
Does your experience with the arena impact your faith in that the Chinatown Stitch will be done in an appropriate way for the community?
The Chinatown Stitch project is part of the President Biden's infrastructure bill. It is independent of this arena, and there is absolutely no reason why a community that was destroyed by a highway project 40 years ago needs to take an arena in order to have the damage to our community partially repaired. That is an independent project that should have never had to happen, but better late than never that they tried to do some reparations for that. But it is independent of this arena. Okay.
said.
That's it. You can
Thank
let
you
go.
very much.
If there's any other questions, you want to get in touch one-on-one, we're happy to do that. But people got other stuff to do this Friday. So thank you so much, everybody.
Thanks for coming.